What the earlier part of our exchange with Ward Churchill proves is that the professor has a tendency to play fast and loose with the facts. What this next segment proves is that he makes them up entirely, especially when it comes to the subject of 9/11. Your justification, you're one of the many you've offered for the reason the terrorists had the right to bomb the World Trade Center. You've said repeatedly it's because the CIA had offices there, and that made it fair game for a military strike, for a strike by terrorists.
According to Pentagon rules. I don't think that's true, and I've made this point repeatedly in things I've written too. That's not true in international law, but the Pentagon invokes that continuously.
Okay, but you realize that those CIA offices, A, were covert and were not known by anybody prior to the actual bombing, and B, those offices were in World Trade Center 7. That was not attacked by the terrorists. It fell down due to burning debris.
Well, we are parsing again. I don't know what they knew and what they didn't know. I didn't even know who they were. So what your inroads are into the intelligence apparatus of Al-Qaeda.
Do you know better than I?
No, but I don't know that they didn't know. And I think perhaps this is at least as precise as U.S. precision bombing.
They didn't hit World Trade Center 7. Even if they knew, let's assume your invented story about them knowing. Somehow they knew, but nobody else did.
That's not an invented story. I said I don't know.
But they didn't hit World Trade Center 7, sir, so it makes no sense. The point I'm making is you offer these assertions. You offer them as fact. You have young college students who for many years believed this stuff. And it's only when you're held to account that people start to see you don't know what you're talking about on a lot of these issues.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know that was at least as precise as U.S. precision bombing.
That's a dodge. You claimed they targeted it.
No, that's a fact is what that happens to be.
You claimed they targeted it because the CIA was there and that made it fair game. A, there's no evidence they knew that the CIA was in there. In fact, the evidence is to the contrary, that no one knew. And B, they didn't target World Trade Center 7. They got the first and the second towers. That tower came down afterward, thanks to debris.
That perhaps is the way they got at it. It is at least as accurate as U.S. precision bombing, where the bombs fell quite often as much as 3 miles from the designated target.
Are you writing a textbook?
I hope so.
Are you in the process?
I'm always writing, whether it turns out to be a textbook or not.
But a textbook? I mean, is there a university that is still in the market for Ward Churchill's thoughts?
There's universities all over the country that are in the market for Ward Churchill's thoughts.
Via text, as an instruction manual for students?
Assigned readings count as text, I would suppose. I've not written a textbook per se. Don't know that I will. Think that I might at some point, in any case.
Is it true that you believe we may get more attacks that resemble the 9/11 attacks and we deserve them?
Well, given my experience and misery in airports ever since 9/11, I would assume that I'm not the only one that thinks we might get more attacks.
And that we deserve them?
You keep doing what you're doing, you're probably going to get responded to in kind. There's a sort of a symmetry to it. I don't know. There's a fair amount of damage inflicted, collateral damage inflicted by drone attacks. That's a little easier to put under the radar. People don't tend to hear about that here, but people tend to hear about it in areas where the drone attacks are occurring, and they're occurring at fairly high degree of frequency, and the total is pretty high, and I would imagine that's upsetting people, don't you?
Do you believe the United States ought to be bombed?
I think the United States, by its own rules, is subject to being bombed.
You can't answer the question.
Yeah, I have answered the question. I think the United States should comply with law. If it does not comply with law, it opens itself up to it, bombing that is. It opens itself up to having done to it everything it does to anyone else.
Just answer honestly, yes or no. Do we deserve to be bombed? Just say it if you think it's true.
I say that if you open yourself up under rule of law for reciprocation in kind, it's quite likely going to happen. I will say that at that point, no more than a murderer who's convicted and punished, you have no complaint. That's what I say.
Let me know what you think. Go to facebook.com/The Kelly File or send me a tweet at Megyn Kelly. But our time with Ward Churchill is not yet over. And on 9/11 this week, we will bring you the best part of the entire interview when Dinesh D'Souza joined us on set in defense of the United States of America. We'll have a sneak peek just ahead.